Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, this is At the Helm Sports. I am your host, Derek Helm. Thank you for joining me for episode 155. Please be sure to follow and subscribe on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave those 5-star reviews. Most of you are listening to the audio version of this podcast, so seriously, just do me a favor. Make sure you're followed or subscribed, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and leave a review. Takes a couple seconds, especially Spotify. Hit those 5 stars. That's it. On Apple, if you want to write something nice, greatly appreciated. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Hit the like button in the comment section. Let me know. How have you fared so far? We're 8 weeks into the season. You profitable? You losing money? Because I'm lighting money on fire the past couple weeks. Been brutal. I mean, basically, I'm sitting pretty going into the 4 o'clock slate every week. And then I just have a quarterback absolutely murder me. Last week, I didn't even make it to the 4 o'clock hour because basically played 33% Jordan Love. So that was a lot of fun. The week before was Dalton and Daniels. So they lit money on fire for me. Then it was Dak the week before that. So hasn't been great the past couple weeks. Had a couple good weeks earlier, so we're not terrible, but see if we could turn it around this week because it is week 9. We are at the midway point of the season basically here. Pretty crazy to think about from that standpoint, but we're going to dive into this slate. We have 12 games. There are 2 teams on bye this week, and it's just the Steelers and 49ers. Had no byes last week, and as I said, I'm sure at some point there's 6 teams going to be on bye coming up because screw your fantasy, screw everything that you think the NFL should be doing. They're just going to do what they want. But we started off with Denver at Baltimore. Now, obviously, Bo Nix went off last week. I played a good amount of him, kind of salvaged some lineups. He's looked really good here recently, but played some terrible, terrible teams. So 5,900, little bit elevated in price, but for a quarterback, still pretty cheap. So I don't know. I haven't made a decision on whether or not I want to go there because obviously this Baltimore defense is terrible against the pass. Nix will run a little bit, so he can add some with his legs. And the problem is, I mean, obviously you can make a case for Cortland Sutton, only 5,400. So maybe that's who you would want to pair him with. Maybe take a shot on Troy Franklin, 4K, hoping he catches something deep here. But if I was going to play Nix, it would probably just be Sutton or just play Nix naked and then maybe bring it back with a Derrick Henry. I don't want to play Javonte. This Baltimore defense is definitely much better defending the run than they are the pass. So it would probably be Bo Nix and Sutton for me. Like I said, maybe a Troy Franklin, but I do like the Baltimore side here. They are heavily favored. After losing last week to Cleveland, I do think that they bounce back nicely here. Lamar at 8K, obviously you can play him every week. He's an MVP candidate for a reason, but I really like Derrick Henry in this game. We know that he does incredible work when they are favored and playing from a positive game script. So that's definitely what I see here as large favorites at home. So I like going to Henry at 8,300 quite a bit. I don't think he'll be very popular because of the price tag. So I'm fine going there. I don't love Zay Flowers at 7K. Definitely talented, definitely been productive. I just worry a little bit about his ceiling. It seems like, he has great games, but I don't know if he has slate breaking upside. 7K, you don't necessarily need him to break the slate, but it's getting up there in price. So I don't know if I want to go there. Obviously, they just traded for Deontay Johnson. Clearly, Carolina's in tank mode because they're just, they already said they're starting Bryce, which tank mode. Anyways, Deontay, I think, is a good addition for this team from an NFL standpoint. I think it helps Lamar a little bit, but I don't think Deontay is the type of wide receiver that really gels that great with Lamar. But overall, it definitely has to help the offense. And like I said, from an NFL standpoint, I think it's a great trade, especially considering the fact they got him for nothing. So I don't know if he'll necessarily play this week. It is a guy that is continually banged up, so we'll have to see if there's any injuries or anything. But this is probably the last week that you can really get Zay Flowers without Deontay in there, and then also obviously Bateman 4,200 dropped that long pass last week. Maybe even part of the reason why they went and got Deontay. But 4,200 I don't think is a terrible price for him, and he's been productive. Obviously, if he catches that ball, it's a little bit better for him last week. But if it's just going to be Flowers and Bateman here, I think you can make a case for them if you wanted to play Lamar with one of them. Andrews looking better here. Depends on how many routes he's going to run. Obviously, if this is a complete route As far as a game goes, I don't know how much work he's going to get, but 4,200 definitely has some touchdown upside there at the tight end position. But for me, it's definitely Derrick Henry here, and maybe Bo Nix there. But those would be my preferred plays on this one. Didn't even say at the top the total in this game 45 and a half. Baltimore 9-point favorites at home. So definitely a game I think you can have some pieces in. Next is probably going to be a game that's pretty popular. Dallas at Atlanta. 52 is the total here, with Atlanta laying 2.5 points as the favorite at home. So pretty high total, by far the highest on the slate. Only game with over a total of 50. Dak's been pretty shitty, if we're being honest, but 6,300 is not a terrible price. Playing in a dome, obviously, if you want to pair him with anybody, it's going to be CeeDee Lamb, 8,800 for him. I would guess that his ownership is very low with how expensive he is. 8,800, you can definitely make a case that he's worth it, but I mean, it prohibits your lineups pretty significantly. So we'd have to see what the value that opens up on this slate, if any, is. Tolbert, I'm not really chasing at 5K, 5,100. If he was 4,200 like Bateman, maybe I'd consider it. So it'd probably just be maybe a CeeDee Lamb, maybe Dak. You can't play this running game because it does not exist. And then Ferguson at 5,100, I think is way too expensive. I think it's a misprice in the wrong way. He's getting short little nothing dump offs and not doing anything with them. He's not scoring the touchdowns that we saw last year. So not really crazy about it. So probably just Lamb, maybe Dak. You can make a case for Cousin stacks here, 6,400, but really I love Bijan, 7,400, continuing to produce. He's getting a ton of work. Algier is involved, but not enough that it's making Bijan unplayable. So I do like him. He's not getting significant price increases here, so 7,400 is a great price for him. Probably even cash consideration. And then I love Drake London. A lot of people went there last week. 6,700. His price actually went down. So he's definitely affordable, still heavily involved here. Dallas's defense has been terrible. So I do like him. Mooney at 6K probably won't be very popular just because now he's at that 6K price. We're used to seeing him in the 5K range. So if he goes totally overlooked, maybe I'm willing to go there. But for me, most likely it would be London and Bijan, and I would love to play them. And then I actually like Kyle Pitts quite a bit in this one, 4,900. Now, I probably won't be alone because he's actually looked very good. Obviously, scored 2 touchdowns last week, had a great game. So if he does get popular, I think those are probably the weeks where you do want to get off of Pitts because he tends to let everybody down. So for me, it would probably be Bijan and London are my favorite plays. And if Mooney is going overlooked, I'll definitely consider it. Next, we have Miami at Buffalo. I actually love Buffalo in this game. I've put them on a teaser already with New Orleans. So they're -6 at home. Tua has never played Buffalo good, especially in Buffalo. So I do love Buffalo here. 49.5 is the total. I think that might be a little bit high. This Miami offense, I made a case last week. They were going to be chalk, and they really haven't been rolling. So I'm not looking to play Tua at 6,200. Achan 6,700 is still absolutely very affordable. He's involved in the passing game. He's got the big play upside, so I do like him there. If he does become chalk, I played a little bit of Mostert last week, scored, so 6K for him. I definitely think he's in play. It's not a terrible price. We see that he's still going to get the goal line work. I still think he's fast enough that he can break a long one here or there. And this Buffalo rush defense is not anything you got to be worried about. So I like the two running backs. I actually probably would prefer them even more than the wide receivers here. Buffalo is a little bit better defending the pass, but Tyreek Hill 7,300 probably still going to be pretty popular. Maybe nowhere near what we saw last week, but probably still pretty popular here at only 7,300. Waddle just, I don't know what's going on. It doesn't look like they're really getting him involved enough. He doesn't look like the Waddle that we've seen in the past, so I'm staying away there. I just really can't get there. So it would probably be the two running backs and Hill for me. You can make a case for Jonnu Smith, 3,500. There's not a ton of value tight ends on this slate that really stand out. So if you wanted to, that's fine. And then Allen 7,700, good price, but it's hard to know who to pair him with. Obviously, Keon Coleman has looked great the last 2 weeks, but with Amari Cooper here, 5,800, I think is a good price for him. I really thought he was going to come in and just instantly be the alpha. Now, obviously, being with the team for such a short amount of time, his snaps should increase going forward, but only played about half the snaps last week. So I don't know that you can necessarily rely on him. So if you're playing Allen lineups, you probably got to allocate quite a bit of your lineups to him to get it right. Shakir, great target share, but don't know if he's really got slate breaking upside. But 5,900, not a terrible price for him. Keon Coleman at 54. So it would probably be one of those three. And then obviously Kincaid is in play at 5K. But I don't really know if you can make a case to pay up over 5K or even 5K for a tight end in this landscape. So I might just play Allen by himself because I do want some pieces to him in this game. Now, obviously, Miami is easier to run against than they are to throw against, but Allen does offer enough with his legs that I think we can see him get it done there. But I love James Cook in this game. Probably won't be alone after the game we saw last week. Obviously, he got, I think it was 16 carries last week. So great to see him as the head of this backfield again. And Ray Davis not really super involved to where it's hurting James Cook. 7,200 is probably a little bit too low for the workload that he gets and the upside that he provides, especially against a really weak Dolphins defense. So I love Cook here, and I'm considering playing some Allen stacks. Probably naked, maybe throw a Keon Coleman in there or a Cooper in some larger field stuff, and then you can bring it back with either one of the running backs or Tyreek, and I think it's actually pretty affordable there. Next, we have New Orleans at Carolina. As I said, I threw New Orleans on a teaser. They are 7-point favorites on the road. 43.5 is the total. Carolina is just, we said it, in full tank mode. They're trading guys away. They're starting their worst quarterback. If Dalton was actually going to start in this game, I might even have considered playing him at 4,400. Now, obviously, after the way it worked out last time, probably shouldn't do that, but 4,400 is so cheap for a quarterback. I'm not paying it for Bryce Young, but I would consider it with Dalton. Derek Carr should be back in this game, 5,600. I think he's in play just with how terrible this Carolina team is. Obviously, we saw this team do pretty well against Carolina earlier in the year. Kamara, always banged up, but I think if he's going to go 7,800, you definitely can make a case for it. He is the workhorse for this team. Carolina is absolutely terrible. He should get plenty of opportunities in this game. Probably a pretty good cash play. If he gets out of control ownership wise, maybe you make a case to go elsewhere. But against this Carolina team, I definitely think you can make a case to play quite a bit of Kamara. Love Olave, 6,100 is probably a really good price for him with Carr back. So definitely like what we see there. He was heavily targeted last week, even though Carr wasn't the quarterback. We should definitely see him heavily targeted again here with no Shaheed. I do think the loss of Shaheed hurts this offense overall, but against this Carolina defense, I don't think it's really going to matter. I made a case for Taysom Hill last week because I thought that Rattler pretty much sucked. So I thought they might use Taysom a little bit. Obviously, they just benched him and went to the other quarterback with Hayner, but I think this could actually be the Hill week, and 3,800 isn't a great price for how little he's used, but I mean, you could definitely see Hill scoring 2 touchdowns in this game. They should have plenty of opportunities to score. So I think this week might actually be a week where you can make a case to play Taysom a little bit in some larger field stuff. As far as the Carolina side goes, I like I said, if it was Dalton, I would consider Leggett. 5,300, not a great price, but not atrocious. But with Bryce Young, I just can't get there. So Jalen Coker, I'll consider in larger field stuff just only because he's 3,600. And as of right now, it doesn't look like we're going to get a ton of pay down options here. He's been heavily involved, actually scored some touchdowns. So I think that's fine there. And then Chuba Hubbard, 6,500. I'd rather the price be down a little bit lower, but the Saints have been one of the worst teams in the NFL defending the run. He should be relied upon heavily. So 6,500 for Chuba. I definitely think he's actually in play here. Next, we have Vegas at Cincy. This is one I might just completely write it off. 46.5 is the total, so a pretty healthy total here, but Cincinnati 7-point favorites at home. I get it's Vegas, but I don't think they deserve to be 7-point favorites. They have not looked good at all. Gardner Minshew, 4,500. Cincinnati's defense hasn't been great. I just said Dalton at 44 is a crazy price, so you can make a case for it. Maybe Minshew can get there. I mean, he doesn't have to do much to pay that off. So it's kind of crazy. And then you know exactly who to pair with him. It's basically since Devontae's left, obviously Brock Bowers, 6K. It's elevated for a tight end, but you know he's going to get the target share. And then Jacoby Myers, 5,300. So that stack is not expensive at all with you know where the targets are going. And if each of them have an okay game, and let's say Minshew threw 2 touchdowns, I think that stat could actually pay off. So I don't hate it. You bring it back with the Jamar Chase, 8,600. You got your savings from Minshew. It's not terrible. But as I said, I don't know that I really want to stack this game up. It looks like it might rain right now. Now, obviously, it's still a little early in the week to really be worrying about weather. And who knows? It's just a little bit of rain. But Burrow has not looked good with Higgins out of the lineup. So I'm not playing Burrow stacks. Obviously, you can make a case every week for Jamar Chase, but 8,600 is pretty expensive. If I'd probably rather just pay up to $200 for CD. So I don't know. If I do decide to maybe go with some Minshew stuff and some larger field stuff, maybe I do go there. T. Higgins has not been practicing, 6,400. Looks like he might miss this week again. If he does, Gesicki's only 3,100. He has been the benefactor target wise when Higgins is out. So you can make a case there. Chase Brown looks like he's overtaken Zach Moss. So 5,900, I don't think is a terrible price for him. Has a little bit of touchdown upside, has a little bit of big play upside. There's not a lot of running backs you can play under 5K. So he's definitely in consideration. But I think I'm not going to be targeting this game overall. If you wanted to just play some one offs in Bowers or Jacoby Myers or Chase Brown or Jamar Chase, I think that's fine. But I don't know that I'm necessarily going to be overstacking this game. Next, we have the Chargers at Cleveland. Another one, for the most part, I'm going to be staying away from. Chargers are 2-point favorites on the road. 43 is the total. Jameis, obviously, good times last week. I said I would probably rather play Knicks last week than Jameis, but Knicks obviously got there, so that wasn't a terrible call. But I did end up playing a couple Jameis lineups, so that worked out as well. 5,400, not a terrible price for him. I do think that the Ravens were a much better matchup last week, though. So Chargers are pretty good defending the pass. 5,400 is so cheap, though. I think you can make a case for it. You go back to Tillman at 4,300. Maybe it's fool's gold, but he's had a healthy target share the past couple weeks. I think he showed that he has some upside. 4,300 is not a terrible price for him. I will still be playing him, and I don't think he'll be anywhere near the ownership that we saw last week. Njoku, 5,500. Don't love paying up for tight end. And obviously, we're not going to have 17 tight ends score every single week, but he's definitely one of the better ones, has a healthy target share. So if you wanted to pair them with Jameis, I think it's fine. On the Charger side, I'm not playing Dobbins at 7K. Just it's really just been a couple games and a couple really long runs for him this season. They are throwing the ball more, so if you wanted to go back to McConkey, I think it's okay at 5,600. I wouldn't expect anything near what we saw last week, but he is a talented wide receiver and should be the clear one here as long as Quentin Johnson is out. So I think you can make a case for it, but really that's all I'm looking at in this game. I don't love it. Next, we have Washington at the Giants. Now, divisional game. Last time we saw these two teams play, it wasn't really great, but Washington 3.5-point favorites on the road. 43.5 is the total. I think there's some pieces here that you can go to. I don't necessarily want to completely overstack this game, but obviously Jaden Daniels 7,500, pretty expensive, still a little bit banged up, but still pretty much got there last week after not. It was possible he wasn't even going to play, and the Bears aren't a pushover on defense. So I think you can make a case to go to Daniels. Obviously, you would want to pair him with McLaurin, but McLaurin's 7,100 now. So not crazy about that. I would probably rather play Daniels. Brian Robinson in play at 6,300, but always banged up recently, so got to make sure he's all right. If he doesn't go, Eckler's in play at 5,300 and McNichols is only 4K. So if for some reason Robinson couldn't go, those two would definitely be in play. Daniel Jones hasn't been running, which is odd. He's looked better as far as a thrower goes this year, but I don't think he offers the upside without the legs. So 5,200, not a terrible price, but not going to be able to get there on that. Tracy looked incredible on Monday night, but dealing with the concussion on a short week, he's probably out. So Singletary, 6,100. Don't know how much upside he has, but Washington not great defensively, more so recently they have been. So I don't know. Singletary probably more so a cash play for me at 6,100, but he should have the bulk of the carries in the backfield to himself. And then Malik Neighbors 7,500. I think the price is a little bit elevated, maybe scares some people away because he hasn't had the huge games that we saw earlier in the week or earlier in the season. But coming back from the injury, he's still getting a good amount of the targets. Obviously, the pricing had come out before the Monday night game, so that's probably why he's up here at 7,500. But I think if you have a low owned Malik Neighbors and you wanted to just go Jaden Daniels, Malik Neighbors, and that's your exposure to this game, I don't hate it. I actually think it makes some sense, and you get some good scoring out of them. As far as the other receivers go, Slayton has looked good, 4,800. Maybe you can make a case for him against this Washington defense. Wandell should get some catches, but doesn't really offer much upside other than that. So for me, it would probably be Neighbors, maybe Singletary, and just Daniels on the other side. So that is the early slate. Now we head Chicago and Arizona, starting off the first of the later games here. Actually, hold on. I think we skipped over one, probably intentionally. Yes, we have New England at Tennessee. So jump the gun there. And basically, as I said, pretty much skipped over it intentionally because 38 is the total. Tennessee laying 3.5 points. There's nothing here I want. I don't know if May is playing in concussion protocol, so maybe you can make a case for Ramondre. If May is playing, I would consider Hunter Henry. That's it. Pollard, meh. New England hasn't been great against the run, so he's in play. I'm not chasing the Ridley. I don't love this game. So reason why I skipped over it. So let's head to the late slate. Chicago at Arizona. 44 and a half is the total there. Arizona 1 point favorites at home. I kind of like Chicago in this game. Arizona, I feel like they've come away with some wins. They've been some close ones, but they really haven't looked incredible, especially offensively. I think Chicago's defense could potentially give them some trouble. Don't really love going to Caleb here. His wide receivers are meh, not great. I mean, I'd probably rather just play DJ Moore at 6,500 and hope that he has a big DJ Moore game. So that's probably all I'm looking at there. Komet should be more involved than he was last week. 4,400 for him at tight end. I think I might maybe play a little bit of Komet there. And then on the Arizona side, Kyler hasn't looked great. Obviously, he has the rushing upside. Had a pretty good efficient game last week. But against this Bears defense, I don't think I'm going to go there. 6,600 for Connor with how involved he's been. I just don't really see the upside. I saw a lot more upside last week where he didn't get it. So usually Connor, just with the amount of work he gets, he can pay off on any given week. So if you wanted to go there, he should be low owned. I think it's okay. I just don't know if he's going to be in my player pool. Marvin Harrison, 6,900, obviously had the huge game last week. Should get a lot more targets in this offense going forward. It's just he is their clear cut best wide receiver. So they should look to get him the ball. And then obviously McBride at 5,800. At some point, you would think he's going to score a touchdown with the amount of work he gets. So really, probably I'd rather just play one-offs here than stacks and maybe go with a DJ Moore, Marvin Harrison, DJ Moore, McBride, maybe a Komet in one of those two wide receivers, or I mean McBride and Harrison for Arizona. And then you can make a case for Swift, 6,400. He's looked pretty good lately. Roshan's still getting some goal line work, but Swift has some big play upside, and they seem to be relying on him a little bit more here recently, so you can make a case for it. I don't know if I'm going to get there, though. Next, we have Jacksonville at Philly. I love this game. I mean, from a Jacksonville standpoint, probably not great considering the injuries they're dealing with, but 45.5 is the total here. Philly, 7.5 point favorites at home. So I do like that. Not going to make a case to play Trevor Lawrence with all his wide receivers hurt. Travis Etienne might be back in this game, 5,900. Pretty good price for him, but Philly's pretty good against the run, so don't really love that. Brian Thomas is considered day to day, so got to keep an eye on him. If he can go 6,600, I definitely have some interest there, but don't really love Gabe Davis. He's a little bit banged up himself. Parker Washington, three $3,600 is definitely in play here, definitely in cash consideration. Should get a huge uptick in usage here and snaps with all these wide receiver injuries for Jacksonville. So I do like him probably more so from a cash standpoint. And then Ingram at 5,300 should basically get tons and tons of targets here. He should be a target monster. Obviously caught the touchdown last week. So I love Ingram. If you wanted to go just Ingram on the Jacksonville side and then go with a Hurt stack, 7,800. Obviously, he's been looking much better from a fantasy standpoint past couple weeks. I don't think he's going to score 3 touchdowns every week, but he's obviously going to get plenty of opportunities to score rushing touchdowns. And then Jacksonville is so terrible defending the pass. Obviously, he should be able to provide quite a bit with his arm in this game. AJ Brown, 8,100 comes into place. Smith is 6,800, so Devontae's probably way too cheap. I don't know that I would double stack it, but if you wanted to just go one of those receivers and Hurts, I think it makes a ton of sense here in what should be a great matchup. Goddard might still miss here, could be back. If he does come back, I definitely think he's in play at 4,500. If he doesn't go, 3,400 for Calcaterra, not terrible. If you were playing Hurt stacks, I'd probably only play him in Hurt stacks. So I do like stacking up Hurts, bringing it back with an Ingram, maybe a Parker Washington just to get some salary savings. And then if you wanted to go to Barkley, I think that should be fine, 8,200. Obviously, we know the upside he possesses. They're not going to get tackled on the 1 yard line every week. So, I mean, if they're even tackled at the 4 yard line, obviously Barkley's going to get some of those carries and has some touchdown upside here. So I do think that he's definitely in play as well here at 8,200 and probably won't be too popular. So I like the Philly side quite a bit here. And I think if for some reason Thomas can't go, you know where to go on the Jacksonville side. And I like Ingram regardless. Next, we have Detroit at Green Bay. Don't really know how I feel about this game yet. Looks like Jordan Love might give it a try, but I don't think he should. They have a bye week next week. He did not look okay. Obviously, tanked my lineups last week. 7K for him. Definitely not paying up with the chance that he comes out after a drive or two. So count me out there. If Malik Willis goes, I think it hurts this game overall because Green Bay probably slows the pace down incredibly there. So you can make a case to go to Josh Jacobs, 6,900. Excuse me. He's obviously had the great game last week. Didn't practice on Wednesday. Possible that he's just resting. So keep an eye on that. But 6,900, he would definitely be in play. If it's Willis, they should rely on him quite a bit. If it's Love, they probably still rely on him quite a bit. So I think he's a good play, possibly in cash consideration. Tucker Craft, 4,600, basically scores a touchdown every week. And then you can just spin around a couple times and throw a dart and hope that you get the right receiver on Green Bay here. I don't love any of them. Obviously, Reed is now down to 6,400, no longer at that 7K range. So he'd probably be the preferred play. Dobbs at 5,700, I don't think is terrible. So I think he gets enough targets. You can make a case for him. But for the most part, I'd probably just be looking to play the Detroit side here, 6,500 for Montgomery. Gets plenty of goal line work. Obviously, 7,600 for Gibbs. He gets the huge play upside and a little bit more passing work. So he's definitely in play. The offense seems to run through these two guys. So they would probably be the preferred ones that I would go to in here. Amon-Ra, 7,900 with no Jameson Williams, definitely in play here. Probably will go overlooked, so he'll probably be pretty low owned. Obviously, we know the talent that he possesses and the upside he has. Laporta, 4,800. Meh. I mean, maybe if Montgomery was playing quarterback, we would get some more touchdowns from Laporta, but He's definitely in play at 4,800, but I just think they spread it around so much here. It would be the two running backs and Amon Ra for me. And that's probably where I'm going to go in this game. Jacobs and maybe one of those three that I said on Detroit. And that's about it. Last game on the slate, Rams at Seahawks. Now, this one is very, very interesting to me. 2.5 point favorites are the Rams on the road. 48's the total. I think this could be a big back and forth game. It looks like DK Metcalf might be able to go in this. They said they're optimistic. 6,500 for him is a great price. Obviously, I think that he is a huge piece of what makes this offense go. So would love to see him back. If he is back, you can make a case for Geno Stacks. Geno's only 5,800. But I love Stafford here, 5,700 with his pass catchers back. They're expensive. Cup 7,700, Puka 7,200. I don't know that I would want to play both of them, but you can definitely make a case for it. And Stafford at 5,700, that price isn't ridiculously prohibitive. The problem there is you would probably want to stack this game if you were going to go with that big of a stack on the Ram side. And then who are you going to go with on the Seattle side? Because Kenneth Walker would probably be preferred at 7,300, Metcalf 65. So it can get expensive quickly. So I'd probably definitely going to be playing quite a bit of Stafford stacks paired with one of Cup or Cooper. I love this game. It's probably going to be my biggest exposure, regardless of what the ownership is, because I think these two wide receivers coming back open it up for Kyron as well at 8K. He is the clear cut RB1 on this team, has plenty of scoring opportunity, huge upside. So I love him here. Seattle, not great against the run. So definitely love him. Kenneth Walker, definitely in play. Just what a terrible, terrible turn of events for him last week. They had the ball inside the 10 several times. I think he only got 2 carries. They brought Charbonnet in later in the game and gave him goal line carries. There was the snap that went over Geno's head. Walker runs backwards and picks it up and actually runs forward. And I think he gained like 15 yards from where he picked it up from and still lost like 20 yards on the play. It was just brutal. But I love going back to Walker here, 7,300. As I said, I already made a case for Metcalf. JSN at 6,200 seems way too expensive. I feel like they priced him up because Metcalf was out. Lockett 5,600, a little bit more palatable. And if you were playing Geno Stacks, I think Fant at 3,600 is fine. But for me, I probably go Stafford, one of those two pass catchers, bring it back with either a Walker or a DK Metcalf. If you wanted to find value somewhere and you really wanted to stack, go Stafford, Puka, Cup, Walker, Metcalf, and then you could find some cheap pieces that you are confident in. I don't hate that stack. I might even try and find a way to get it done because I could see this game absolutely going off here. So I do like some pieces, and I'm very interested to see if it goes a little bit overlooked and some people focus a little more on the early games. But as I said, regardless of ownership, it's probably going to be my highest owned game of the slate. But that's going to do it for this week. As always, check out thehelmsports.com. Head to the My Bets tab. All my bets will be up there for Saturday before the slate and Sunday before the Sunday slate. Been having some really profitable weeks. I've been profitable, I think, 5 weeks in a row in NFL. So killing it over there. Check out themadlabmma.com. All my bets go into the Discord the second I make them. And if I'm making any bets during the day, they will be posted up there. Most likely won't be on my site. So definitely check that out. Obviously, Mad Lab kills MMA, and we're doing pretty good recently here. Have some profitable weeks on the NFL side. NBA picked up as well. We got plenty of guys covering NBA in the Discord over there. So check that out. But that's going to do it for this week. As always, thank you for listening. Greatly appreciated. I am your host, Derek Helm. And remember,
Just have fun out there.